Fordlandia. In the 1920s, Henry Ford, yes, the car guy, decided to build a perfect town in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. He wanted rubber for his tires, but instead of just buying it, he thought, why not create a mini America in the jungle? So he bought a chunk of land in Brazil and called it Fordlandia. Then he sent over wooden houses, a school, a golf course, and even a diner that served hamburgers. The workers were locals who had never seen a hamburger in their life, and didn't ask for one either. Ford banned alcohol, forced everyone to follow strict work schedules, and made them eat canned food and dance to jazz. The locals hated it. They weren't allowed to drink. They weren't allowed to nap in hammocks. Riots broke out. Workers smashed the cafeteria. Ford had to call in the Brazilian army just to calm things down. But that was just the people part. The rubber trees were also a disaster. Ford's team planted them too close together, so they got eaten alive by bugs and fungus. They tried again with better spacing, but it was too late. Nature had already filed a complaint. After pouring millions into the project, Ford gave up. Fordlandia was abandoned. The jungle took it back. Today, it's a ghost town with crumbling buildings and a broken dream of industrial utopia. Twin Oaks. If we rewind to 1967, a bunch of idealists read a science fiction novel, nodded seriously, and decided the best plan was to build it in real life. So they moved to rural Virginia and launched a commune based on a book where nobody owned anything, nobody got married, everyone was equal, and just sort of agreed on stuff. Jobs were handed out through a labor credit system. You could earn the same credit for cooking dinner or milking goats. Want to sew clothes or fix a tractor? Same credit. It sounded fair, until nobody wanted to do the gross jobs, and everyone wanted to garden in the sunshine. Shocking. They shared everything. Money, chores, even childcare. Romantic relationships were allowed, but marriage? Nope, too possessive. Instead, people had open relationships, which worked fine until emotions entered the chat. Jealousy, drama, and messy breakups started spreading faster than the compost. Decisions were made by endless meetings. Everything had to be voted on. You couldn't just fix a broken toilet. You had to wait for a group consensus on what kind of wrench to use. Some members loved the equality. Others quietly plotted their escape. While Twin Oaks never fully collapsed like other utopias, it hit burnout hard. People left. Rules softened. The dream of a perfectly balanced society turned into something a little messier. Universe 25. In the late 1960s, a scientist named John Calhoun built a luxury paradise for mice. No predators, no hunger, no disease. Just endless food, clean water, soft nesting boxes, and cozy tunnels. It was supposed to show how a perfect society would grow. Instead, it turned into the mouse version of the end of the world. At first, everything looked great. 8 healthy mice became 600 in under a year. No one had to fight for food. Every female had her own place to raise babies. It was like someone installed an all-you-can-eat buffet next to a luxury spa and told everyone to relax forever. Then came the collapse. Male mice stopped protecting their space and started picking fights, like bored teenagers in a food court. Females abandoned their babies or attacked them. Some mice refused to mate at all. Others didn't care who they mated with, as long as someone was nearby. Despite having space for thousands, the population froze. Then it dropped. The weirdest part is that a group of mice separated themselves, climbed to the top levels, and just quit society. They didn't fight, didn't breed, didn't even look at other mice. They ate, slept, and groomed all day. Scientists nicknamed them the beautiful ones. Spotless coats, perfect health, and absolutely no interest in doing anything useful. By day 600, no more babies were born. By day 1500, they were all dead. Even with everything they needed, they couldn't survive. Zui Mdal. Jewish immigrants fleeing poverty in Eastern Europe landed in Argentina, hoping for a fresh start. They set up a group called Zui Mdal, something that looked like a community support network on paper. In reality, it turned into one of the biggest sex trafficking rings in the Western world. By the early 1900s, this utopian society had gone full horror show. Zui Mdal trafficked thousands of Jewish women, many of them tricked into coming to Argentina with fake promises of marriage or jobs. Once Once they arrived, there were no husbands, just brothels. And clients, lots of clients. At its peak, the group had over 400 members running hundreds of brothels across the country. They even set up their own synagogues and cemeteries, because apparently if you're going to run a human trafficking empire, you should still have a proper place to pray and bury your victims. The real twist is they operated legally for decades, bribed judges, paid off cops, and kept detailed records. Because nothing says evil empire like well-organized accounting, it only collapsed when one woman, Raquel Lieberman, escaped and exposed everything. She walked into court, named names, and blew the whole thing open. Zui Mdal didn't end with a bang, but with court cases, deportations, and a quiet erasure from history books. If you wouldn't like to live in a utopia like Zui Mdal, please subscribe. Onida Community. If you lived in 1848, you would find a man named John Humphrey Noyes, who had a vision, a perfect society where no one owned anything, not even their relationships. So he started the Onida Community in upstate New York. His plan was no marriage, no private property, and no jealousy. Just one big, happy family, which shared everything. They called it complex marriage. It meant everyone was married to everyone else. You couldn't choose a partner, and you definitely couldn't be exclusive. If you liked someone, you had to get permission from a committee. Romantic sparks were sent to HR. Kids weren't raised by their parents either. They went straight to a group nursery. Mothers could visit, but only during scheduled hours. It was equal, efficient, and just a little bit cold. Noyes also had a thing for eugenics, before it was called that. He handpicked which couples could have babies, believing they'd breed better humans. And surprise, he chose himself a lot. When people started asking questions, he quietly left town. After that, everything fell apart. The rules got confusing. The younger generation hated the system. The community that banned marriage ended up with more breakups than a high school prom season. Literally. They gave up and turned into a kitchenware company, Onida Limited, makers of forks and spoons. Taiping Heavenly Kingdom. In the mid-1800s, a man in China failed his civil service exam 4 times and decided that meant one thing. He must be the brother of Jesus Christ himself. His name was Hong Xiuquan, and instead of studying harder, he launched a utopia. He called it the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom, a place with no private property, no alcohol, no opium, no gambling, and absolutely no sex, not even if you were married. The idea was spiritual purity. The result was mass confusion, sneaky rule breaking, and very grumpy husbands. Hong claimed he got his instructions directly from God. He banned traditional beliefs, rewrote the Bible, and created a kingdom where everyone had to dress the same, work for the state, and never question him. He lived in a palace, while his followers lived on the streets, and broken down homes. But hey, equal wages for men and women. The kingdom grew fast. At its peak, it had over 30 million people, and controlled huge parts of southern China. Then came the war, and Hong declared battle on the ruling Qing dynasty, and things escalated quickly. What started as a holy mission turned into one of the deadliest civil wars in history, over 20 million dead. Eventually, the Qing forces surrounded the capital, and Hong died. Some say from illness, others say he accidentally poisoned himself with herbs. Either way, the utopia collapsed in fire, famine, and total chaos. Drop City. Back in the 1960s, a group of artists thought, why not build a town with no rules, no rent, and plenty of paint? So they headed to Colorado, slapped together some domes, and called it Drop City. The houses looked like spaceship helmets made from junk metal. People lived in them, painted murals on them, and held poetry readings inside. For a while, it felt like a peaceful utopia. But then more people showed up. And more, and more. Not artists, not idealists, just random drifters who heard there was free food and 0 rules. Suddenly, Drop City had too many people and not enough showers. The domes turned into trash piles, fights broke out, people started stealing from each other. A goat allegedly got kidnapped, more than once. The original founders bailed. They quietly packed up and left the place they built because even they couldn't stand it anymore. One of them later called it a beautiful failure, another just called it gross. By the 1970s, Drop City was abandoned. The domes rusted, the art faded, and the dream floated away like a bad smell in the wind. It started with creativity and ended with chaos, junk, and one very confused goat. Kibbutzim. In early 20th century Israel, people tried something bold. No bosses, no banks, no private stuff. Just shared work, shared money, and shared everything. from crops to kids. They called it the kibbutz, and for a while, it actually worked. You didn't own your house, clothes, or your toothpaste. If you needed something, you asked. If someone needed help, you helped. Even kids were raised together in communal houses, like one big daycare that never closed. Parents visited, waved, and then went back to milking cows or fixing tractors. Everyone got the same allowance, no matter what job they did. A doctor and a dishwasher earned the same, which sounds fair until the doctor realized the dishwasher wasn't on call at 3 a.m. and didn't spend 10 years in school scrubbing beakers. People rotated jobs to avoid hierarchy. One month you taught math, the next you cleaned chicken coops. It kept things equal, but also meant your kid's teacher might have been a plumber last week and was still figuring out algebra. And yet, somehow, it lasted. Some kibbutzim still exist today. Over time, many started allowing private income, updated rules, and let parents raise their own kids again. But in the early days, it was full socialism, full send. Kibbutzim were proof that radical equality can work for a while, but when everyone owns everything, it turns out no one really wants to be on trash duty twice in 1 week. Nauvoo. Way back in the 1840s, a group of Mormon pioneers built a city from scratch in Illinois and named it Nauvoo, which means beautiful place. They wanted freedom, equality, and a community led by faith. What they got was secret marriages, a private militia, and a prophet who ran for U.S. president, and then declared himself king. At first, Nauvoo looked like a miracle. Swampland turned into wide streets, big stone buildings, and a growing city powered by hard work and shared beliefs. Joseph Smith ran the entire operation, church leader, town mayor, and unofficial editor-in-chief. Eventually, he claimed divine input on politics too, as if his resume wasn't already full. Then things got weird. Polygamy was kept quiet at first. Smith had about 30 wives, including some who were already married, which was less heavenly plan and more soap opera with extra steps. The church denied everything, but locals weren't buying it. He built his own private army, called it the Nauvoo Legion, and started handing out laws faster than anyone could read them. When a newspaper spilled the details, Smith had it destroyed, which surprisingly didn't calm things down. Then he ran for president of the United States while quietly planning a theocracy on the side. That didn't go over well. A mob stormed the jail where he was held and assassinated him. His followers fled the city at gunpoint. Rajnish Pam. In the 1980s, a guru from India named Bhagwan Sri Rajnish rolled into rural Oregon with a dream to turn empty desert into a perfect city. His followers built homes, farms, and a whole new life from scratch. No taxes, no stress, just meditation, maroon robes, and a weird amount of smiling. Pretty soon they had their own airport, security squad, and even their own disco where the music never stopped. They named it Rajnish Pam. Locals just called it trouble in matching outfits. The robes were harmless, the voter fraud wasn't. Thousands of followers moved in. They built roads, farms, and houses in the middle of nowhere. But when local towns refused to let them expand, things took a turn. Rajnish's right-hand woman started fighting back. Not with lawyers, but with salmonella. Over 750 people were poisoned in the biggest bioterror attack in U.S. history, just to swing a local election. Things spiraled. They bugged buildings, plotted assassinations, and smuggled weapons. Rajnish stopped pretending to meditate and started collecting Rolls Royces. Eventually, the whole place got raided. The guru fled the country. His top lieutenants were arrested. The town was abandoned.